I was at a Starbucks in West Los Angeles, and outside of that massive picture window, I saw a man get assaulted crossing the street. There was an unhoused individual who seemed like he was, maybe going through something, but there was a very extreme altercation. It was literally a fight, feet away from me, but I was on the other side of the Starbucks window, and the reaction was just so typical. No one knew what to do. People were standing there frozen. And finally, the Starbucks barista, who was all of, I don't know, maybe he was 20, he was very young, went out, somehow managed to break up this fight. And then the next thing he did is he pulled out a rag and a spray bottle and started cleaning the window because droplets of blood had hit the window.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun at all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Palacio and Partners, providing turnkey podcast creation, hosting, production, promotion, and related creative resources for you and your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Anna Redmond. Anna is the founder and CEO of Braav, a physical security company trusted by organizations nationwide. Anna is a Harvard graduate and a former venture capitalist at Rustic Canyon Partners. She has been featured in Forbes, Security Journal Americas, U.S. News and World Report, and Tech News World. Anna also built AllCoin, a free platform where military, law enforcement, and first responder communities can digitize, verify, and preserve their challenge coin collections on the blockchain. You can learn more about Anna at braav.co. That's BRAAV.co. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Anna.
Anna, welcome to the Corporate Couch this morning.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
I think you're the quickest guest to book a podcast with me. We actually met for the first time yesterday after Milford Beagle, Lieutenant General, 35 years, I believe, in the U.S. Army, introduced us. So I usually start with a certain question, but I'm going to change it up a little bit for you. So this weekend, you were on the national news because a mountain lion was in your neighborhood. So why don't we just start there, and you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was the most unexpected and craziest 15 minutes of fame ever. I walked out of my yard in the morning and I saw it walk in. I thought that I must have gotten it wrong. I was wondering, man, is it some sort of weird breed of cat? I yelled for my husband. He raced outside. Thankfully, hadn't left for work. Sanity checked that it was indeed a mountain lion. We have this fun, we need to figure out how to save our Ring camera footage, because we have the moment that I see it, that I start to go towards our front door, that I'm yelling, Nate. And that kicked off the craziest Friday ever of us being trapped in our house for, I think it was close to 8 hours. Had a ton of first responders here. It's interesting. You're a kid, you're always like, one day I'm going to be on the news, I'll be interviewed. And you never think it'll be because you have a mountain lion in your yard.
Yeah. And even went to the national news feeds, right?
It went to so many national news feeds that people who we hadn't talked to in literally 10 years were reaching out, checking in, saying, hey, I saw you on our national news. Are you okay? So it It was wild, and the animal was so beautiful. And thankfully, the story had a happy ending because the amazing team of professionals that came out moved super slowly, was able to tranquilize it, and it's back in the Santa Monica Mountains. And we have so many cool photos of it because it was so close to us.
Wow. Yes. Scary for sure. So I love that story. People know you fairly well. What one thing would surprise them about you, Anna?
You stole my thunder. I was going to lead with the mountain lion.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, gosh, I can juggle 4 balls.
Wow, there you go. You and Seth Godin.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he writes about it in his blog. He has various times and has talked about it. It's all about, everybody thinks it's about the throw, I think. The catch. It's really about the throw in terms of juggling, I think. I think I have that right. I can maybe juggle 2 balls, maybe.
Two's a good start. Huh, yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm not an amazing juggler, but yeah. I did impress many of my kids' friends when they were younger with that. That was my cool mom skill.
Well, there you go. A nice one. Anna, where did you grow up and what was fun for you growing up?
So I was born in Kiev, Ukraine, moved to the States when I was 5, and after that grew up in California. I was a super curious kid, and I was really into entrepreneurship from a young age. I look at my kids now and think, man, if I'd been born, 20 years later, I would have been that kid that wants to be on Shark Tank. But as a result, I would always, I kept a notebook of inventions, and they were very silly, but that was the way that I kept myself busy.
Yeah. 5, you start remembering things, but what was the kind of big change coming from Kiev to California?
Oh, it was everything was big because when we left, it was the Soviet Union. So I'm dating myself there, but yeah, it was the USSR. So it was a locked, closed country moving to a very open, democratic one. And I will never forget, my parents told me the first time that I had a bake sale with a friend, I must have been, 7 or something. They were shocked by that simple act because that was illegal in the Soviet Union, right? It was no private commerce. The fact that you wanted to engage in private commerce was shocking.
Right.
And they were reorienting their worldview very happily. we were so grateful to this country, and I love it so much.
Yeah. What was your role in the bake sale? Were you, kind of CEO, or you were production? You actually made the baked goods?
It was so funny. My favorite thing was giving people free samples.
There you go.
And I found that they, it works. We had a lot of adults who were like, okay, I'll have one more free sample. Okay, I'll buy some.
Yeah. I don't know if it's in a famous book or something, but it says never pass a kid, with on a lemonade stand or selling something. And I always loved stopping, and the 25 cents for a cup of Dixie cup of lemonade, and you give $1 and they're just all lit up. It's so fun.
It's so satisfying. Although I have to tell you, I'm in Santa Monica, and you're not going to find 25-cent cup of lemonade.
I'm sure.
Here, it's inflation. Inflation has hit the lemonade stands. My kids love doing lemonade stands, and I think theirs were like $1, maybe $1.50, but they had so many people throwing down 5s and 10s, and I was like, please, teach my kids that it's a little harder to make money than that.
Right. So, any aspirations, like when you're out to build companies, or what was it for you?
I genuinely really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think I didn't know what, and I didn't have the sense of what it entails exactly. But I always, I was that kid that, I want to do it my way. And even in high school, I remember, talking the teachers into letting me do an independent study AP class. And this was early days of the internet. I'd emailed the AP French literature teacher in some other state to get his curriculum. and he was kind enough to mail it to me. And then I like marched into school and said, I have a curriculum. Can I please do this course? So I really liked charting my own path.
Yeah. And where did you think that was part of your DNA to do that, or did you have a role model? Like, what do you think influenced you to go that direction?
I'm sure some of that is a little like personality driven. But certainly, my parents were always very supportive, and they always encouraged me to look for solutions and, ask if you want something. Don't be that person that's like, well, this is the square that I live inside, so I can't go outside of it. And I think probably a lot of that is driven by, any time when people move dramatically, right, where they move from one country to another, it's a really big uprooting and regrounding. But that particular move for them was so dramatic, because when they left, the agreement was like, you're gone. You can never go back. Now people leave countries and they retain a citizenship, and you can come visit. But the thought was, we may never set foot on this land again. And it's a massive leap, a massive leap to take.
Right.
So to be the kind of person that wants a better life and is comfortable with that level of anxiety and the unknown, I think that imprints, right? It imprints on your kids, and they see that, and they think, gosh, after doing that, like the other risks feel small.
Right. And at the time that the family came over, was it hard to get? Was it hard to exit, the Soviet Union? I can't remember. Obviously I'm old enough to remember.
Yeah, there was a lot of complexity. There's a whole category of Soviet immigrants that basically submitted documents and then were kept waiting in this awkward, incredibly difficult limbo for years and years. And I think my parents had sort of applied to leave at the same time that my aunt and uncle did, but in different cities. And so my aunt and uncle, or maybe it wasn't even different cities, maybe it was different districts. There was some difference. And so my aunt and uncle and my cousin left, I think, something like 8 or 10 years before we did, and my parents were kept waiting. And every year it was like, we don't know, will we be allowed to leave? And because it was such a different style of government at the time, everyone knew, right? Everyone knew that you had wanted to leave. And so my dad lost his job. There was a lot of social pressure and social repercussions, very dramatic ones. And my parents lived with that for years. So yeah, it was incredibly difficult. And there's a whole pretty fascinating historical backstory to that, which I think at the time I didn't know. I may garble some of this, so maybe people can fact check this on Wikipedia, but effectively there was a set of agreements that allowed those with Jewish ancestry to leave, and my dad is Jewish, and his family was in the States, and this was in the, I want to say, the mid to late 70s, and those were agreements between the USSR, I think the US, Canada, maybe other European countries at the time, and it was part of a set of accords, and so the USSR sort of okayed it. Then they invaded Afghanistan. And as a result of that invasion, all of these countries, I think because of that, the USSR was barred from the next Olympic Games because of that invasion. And as a reaction to being barred from the Olympic Games, they stopped all emigration out of the country. And so people who were able to get out before that moment left, and then after that moment, sort of the doors were closed. So yeah, it's fascinating, tracing how this big political moment then impacts, people's lives and their day to day so dramatically.
You just can't imagine it. Your family went through that, and a lot of people went through that. Yeah. So you graduate high school. I know you graduated from Harvard. Was that your first and only university?
Yeah, I got my bachelor's and my master's from Harvard.
Yeah, so I had to do some little research on that ABAM
Oh,
program. So
I
maybe
know, I know.
maybe
We have
maybe
to call it something different, right?
yeah,
It's not a BA, it's an
yeah.
ABAM. So I did my undergrad in 3 years, and then I did my master's in history of science in the fourth year.
You went out your way in high school and got this, the AP French literature curriculum, and history major, masters. What was the draw there? Why that major? And was your major all the way through the 5-6 year program?
No. My undergrad major was a little more entrepreneurship relevant. It was economics and information technology policy, and that, by the way, in line with my thing of like I can't leave it alone. It has to be a little different. That was what's called a special concentration, which means that I made it myself. I'm the only person with an economics and information technology policy degree from Harvard.
I thought it was very unique when I looked at your LinkedIn. I'm like, that's interesting. Economics and IT policy.
Yeah. And so maybe, it's entirely possible someone has done something similar but called it something different. So I was able to finish that in 3 years. And then I wanted to stay on and get a master's degree. And I was very intrigued by the history of science department. And the theory there is pretty fascinating. There's a whole theory of scientific revolutions. There's a book about it. A lot of other reading that we did, which is just this core question of how does science develop and why, right? Like what has to happen politically to allow people to push progress forward? Why did the Renaissance happen when it did? Why did we have, the supposed Dark Ages? So it was a year really digging into that. I actually did a lot of work in the history of psychology, which sort of happened on the eve of World War II. I think you tease out these bits and pieces and you come back to themes later on in your life. And I didn't know at the time in what ways I was building the scaffolding for my career, but I've certainly come back to that knowledge many, many times.
Just so curious. So you walk out, you graduate, walk out of the hallowed halls of Harvard, and what is that first job, and how did you get it?
Venture capital. Again, squarely along with the entrepreneurship theme. I'd had a number of offers, I think some for bigger companies. There was a smaller venture capital fund in California, and I went to interview, and I liked the people, I liked the space, and I wanted to go see entrepreneurs pitch, and I wanted to help decide who would get funding and who would, be supported to grow an amazing business.
When you had that job, did you have a career plan at that point? I know you're right out of Harvard, but still, did you kind of see a path for yourself, or like most people that graduate, go, yeah, I'm going to get a job, then figure out what's next as I go?
I think I had a sense that I wanted to be on the investment side for a while, and I did. I stayed at Rustic Canyon for several years. And then I moved to Boston Avenue Capital, which was actually a micro cap fund, small cap, deep value. And so they were on the public equities side. I had a sense that I'd want to move to entrepreneurship at some point, but I wasn't sure when. So I think I looked at that as kind of building a knowledge base.
It seemed at some point you went to CompuMed, I believe, and eventually became the COO. What was that like, kind of being in the senior leadership team and being in the tech med space?
Yeah, it was such a great learning experience. I was very young. I was working for an investor, public investor, who ended up with board seats, and one of the choices that he made is he wanted someone on his team to take a temporary role. And he sort of said, you're in, go sit in their office and move the business forward and learn about it and report back. And it was fabulous. I think it was my first time really seeing the inner workings of it was very small, but it was a public company, and just understanding the dynamics and the personalities. I saw what worked. I also saw what didn't work. I love being thrown in to the deep end, and I've done that several times in my career, specifically with the security space, right, where I moved to within the last 6 years. And so that was laying the groundwork for comfort in those situations.
Working for analyst firms and kind of in the equity space, it is a lot different from working at a company like CompuMed or name the company. So what was the biggest really aha, after you were there for a little bit, where you're like, oh my God, I never knew this was going to happen, or why do they do this, or what was it for you?
Learned a lot about sales cycles. So they were, it was a B2B business. They were selling to much larger companies. I flew out and met with clients and prospective clients. So that was really interesting, just to understand like what else goes into a sales cycle besides just the product, right? Like, do you have good product, but also how are you structuring the deal? What's the incentive for your buyer? How does that work? So that was fabulous. And I think both the things that we did well and the things that we did poorly were really great learning experiences. And then just sort of understanding the intercompany dynamics, and also, the experience of, being sent in as sort of the emissary of the investor, and what that relationship is like, and all of the bridge building that you have to do, which, honestly, I was quite young. I think I was 26 at the time. So some of it I did well, some of it not so well. As a funny aside, the manager of the portfolio for Boston Avenue Capital, when he would go in, he was always like, you should always bring food. People love food. Bring donuts, bring bagels. Like, that should be one of their first interactions with you. And I thought it was so funny, but it works. And,
right.
Such a funny thing to learn, but I've used that knowledge to my advantage in the future.
Yeah, because you always love going to the meetings that people that did bring food. There was a certain person or people that would always bring food to their meetings, and they were always well attended.
Or just, it's that little moment. I think that so much of life happens in the little moments, right? Like the little moments of care. And we're wired to like people that feed us, right?
Right. Yes. My Italian descent, for Italian mothers and aunts, food is love. The more you eat, the more you love them. So there you go. So, yeah, so 26, I'm always amazed at, people that, take that much responsibility at a young age. So did you have, a role model for leadership, a leadership mentor or books, or what was it for you, or was just learning by fire?
Yeah, maybe I was even 25. Sorry, I'm kind of thinking back, mid-20s. I think it was, I certainly was mentored a lot by the PM of the fund, the portfolio manager. He did a really nice job. He was clearly very busy, but definitely made himself accessible. And otherwise, it was a lot of it was just experiential. And I find, frankly, I like to learn that way. And I've put myself in situations in my career where I've been forced to learn that way. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but often the learning is much faster.
When you exited CompuMed, what was your thought process? Did you have a plan at that point?
Well, I was leaving CompuMed, but staying with the fund. So I was, so that was pre-planned. That wasn't, I was there for a finite period of time. So then I was back with the fund. They went through a ton of transit in 2008, which was very tricky. I ended up leaving, and I was getting married. So took a little bit of time off for that, and actually had my first child soon after. In those things that you kind of do, which you look back on, you're like, oh, it's so interesting that I took a leap. I actually took a few years off to study acupuncture.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, not on my resume.
Right.
But I have 3/4 of an acupuncture degree in the state of California.
Really? Yeah.
Where it takes 4 full years to get a degree.
Wow. And what was the appeal for you to get an or attempt to get an acupuncture degree?
I love that attempt. That's what I should have led with. Tell me one thing about
certification there, Anna. I'm sorry.
I attempted. I think I had started doing it, and it was just really, really impactful. It helped so much from a mind-body perspective, and I hadn't really done anything that felt like off the beaten path. It felt like I'd been on this like steady career trajectory. And there are those moments where you're like, you know what, I want to do this for me. And I'll tell you, it is so helpful having that toolkit right now, even though I'm clearly not a practitioner, but my mom loves it when I do acupuncture for her, and I do it for her quite often. I've done it for my husband, do it for myself. So it's a fun toolkit to have.
Yeah, no, I'm a big believer in a lot of the Eastern medicine traditions and looking at holistic health and prevention, not treatment. As more we do in the U.S. type thing. But it's helped me. Not to get into my acupuncture story, but I did have a bad case of tendonitis in my elbow, and really.
And the acupuncture helped.
That's right.
Oh, that's fabulous. How many sessions did you do?
Oh, I probably did 4.
That's fast.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Dr. Sherman Shee. I don't know if Sherman is still practicing, but there you go, Sherman. You can sponsor the Corporate Couch, Sherman, if you like. There
you go.
Then you decided to get back, you stayed at home, went for the acupuncture certification, and then what was the point? Like, I need to get back in the corporate game.
I think I hit a point where I felt ready to go back to work. I met a co-founder who, she and I actually both went to Harvard. We were a couple of years apart, and we met out here in LA. And we started brainstorming, and there was a company that we wanted to start. And I was like, you know what, I think I'm ready. It was pretty clear to me that as much as I loved acupuncture, I didn't think the thing for me to do was to become a practitioner. I was really drawn to business and creation and entrepreneurship. And so we launched my previous company, which was called Hippo Reads, and we did a lot of content creation for Fortune 500s, connecting academics with business opportunities, and ran that for a good 7 or 8 years. We grew a ton, sort of an agency model. And then in 2020, we went through a lot of changes. Our business model had transitioned. So we made the decision to wind down a portion of the company, transitioned another piece of it. And, at that intersection, I was kind of looking at my next thing, became really, really interested in private security, specifically from the customer perspective. And I always say, now when I work with security professionals and veterans and first responders, I clearly am not an expert in security. That's not the career that I came from, but I do know product market fit. And it was very clear to me that there were opportunities in private security in which customers, could be served better. So we went and we launched Braav, which is the current company that I'm running today, really predicated on the premise that we can deliver fractional chief security officers who are high-level domain experts in physical security into mid-sized businesses, into property management companies that deal in commercial real estate, and high-net-worth individuals. And we can do it often less expensively than you think, pretty seamlessly, and we can take the burden of decision-making off of the plate of the person that it's on. And the big sort of aha moment for us that kind of drove us to launching the company was this realization that in so many organizations, the person that owns physical security does not have a physical security background. Sometimes it's the head of HR, sometimes it's a facilities manager, but invariably it's someone who feels uncomfortable holding that responsibility, does not have the training to know what the best practices are. And maybe in a 5-person company, maybe in a 15-person company, that sort of works kind of. But you hit a point where it's like, between best practices and compliance and actually keeping people safe, like we really need to get some adult supervision in the room. So we built the company to deliver that, grew through word of mouth, had a lot of early, very satisfied customers. And it was such a fantastic experience. And that led to launching the secondary product, which is what you and I spent a lot of time chatting about, which is the Challenge Coin network.
Are you drowning in boring corporate communications? Palacio and Partners is here to rescue you. We transform internal podcasts from snooze fest to must-listen content that actually connects your team and strengthens your culture. Imagine podcast episodes that make your employees laugh while staying informed. Our founder, Jeff Palacio, doesn't just create podcasts. He creates conversations that break through the noise. Whether you're a growing startup or a massive corporation, we turn your company's story into audio gold. Leadership becomes human. Remote teams feel connected. Your message cuts through the clutter. Palacio and Partners, where corporate communications gets a fun makeover. Let's make your podcast work harder than your email inbox ever could. Jeff is happy to share his insights on podcasting with you. You can contact him via LinkedIn or schedule a Zoom call via the link in the episode description.
Let's hold the Challenge Coin Network for a second. You got into private security, which basically no background in. I've interviewed the co-founders, two of the three co-founders of Roback, that premium athleisure brand, and they had no experience in clothing or retail, or they had some e-commerce, but they thought their ignorance, or their lack of knowledge, I should say, was their superpower, because they asked the right questions. But was there a conversation with someone about private security that it's an interesting choice to go, I'm going to build a company, and so we can help mid-sized companies take the burden off their physical security challenges and goals.
It was a big pivot. Definitely a fish out of water story. I agree, by the way. I do think that being a newcomer to this space overwhelmingly has been a big positive, and I think it's allowed us to do things that and to move differently than other security companies. But I think the aha moment was a series of aha moments. The circles in which I move, they're obviously business and entrepreneurship circles, and particularly around 2020, I think nationally, we were at a point where people just generally were not feeling safe. There was a lot going on. From the business lens, I was just hearing story after story of and then this happened, and then this happened, and we didn't know what to do. I had one leader say something to the equivalent of if I knew what to get, I know I could go and get 20 cameras or 10 drones or 4 tasers, but I just need someone to help me make sense of it. I don't know what the best practice is. And that comment really stuck. And then I think just even personally, gosh, I think this was in early 2020 maybe, or maybe it was late 2019, but I was at a Starbucks in West Los Angeles, and outside of that massive picture window, I saw a man get assaulted crossing the street. There was an unhoused individual who seemed like he was maybe going through something, but there was a very extreme altercation. It was literally a fight feet away from me, but I was on the other side of the Starbucks window, and the reaction was just so typical. No one knew what to do. People were standing there frozen, and finally the Starbucks barista, who was all of, I don't know, maybe he was 20, he was very young, went out, somehow managed to break up this fight, and then the next thing he did is he pulled out a rag and a spray bottle and started cleaning the window because droplets of blood had hit the window, the Starbucks window.
Wow.
And the police came, and at the time I felt like it was a very slow response time. Now, of course, having worked with these communities in such depth, I understand that was a moment where they were severely understaffed, where the triage of what are we responding to was so difficult, and that a fist fight with a few drops of blood ranked lower than stabbings or whatever else they were responding to. But it felt really vulnerable, honestly. And I wanted to tease that out when I got home and sort of put it into my mental map of, gosh, this is what businesses are saying, this is what's happening, and this is what I felt. So how do we, who do I call? Can I call someone? Do I even know anyone to call that can help me make sense of this? And I didn't. And so, in the early days, we looked at a lot of different product versions, and I still think there's a very interesting direct-to-consumer security product as well, which kind of answers the same question of like, who's the security expert that you can talk to?
Yeah, so you get into kind of spin off AllCoin to digitize challenge coins, but why don't you explain to the listeners what a challenge coin is and kind of maybe a brief history of them, because it's so interesting to me.
So challenge coins look like this. There are all sorts of different ones, right? There are some that are, different shapes. This is a Navy SEAL one. This is the security company of one of my advisors. His is differently shaped. A lot of them are round. And they have been a military and first responder tradition, started in the military, though, for over 100 years. And the genesis, the story presumably is apocryphal, so it hasn't been sort of like verified. But there was a Air Force squadron commander who, during World War I, decided to make coins as mementos for all of the men in his unit. And he had them minted with a unit name and logo and handed them out. And in the midst of the fighting, one of the pilots was downed and captured and was in a prisoner of war camp and managed to escape and make it to, I think, swim across the English Channel and make it to England. And when he finally made it, people captured him and thought that he was a spy. And of all the things in his possession that could have proved his identity, the only one that he had managed to hang on to was the challenge coin. Pulled out his coin and showed it to them and said, look, this is who I am. This is my proof. And so rather than executing him as a spy, he went on to live a long and happy life. And
yeah, it's a great story, because I read it, and I guess he was wearing it as a necklace and had the coin in a pouch, and they stripped him of all his belongings when they captured him, and when he escaped, he had that. So it's a great story.
Right, it's like so cinematic, and I've heard several different versions of it. So
right.
I think it's one of those things where everyone's is a little bit different, but fundamentally since then, military units, police departments, divisions of the armed forces, they all have their own challenge coins. And typically they're given out for a couple of reasons. There's membership, which is kind of the story that I just shared. There's definitely accomplishment or achievement. So if you Google presidential challenge coin, you'll see photos of presidents literally palming coins and sort of shaking hands like this, and then the coin changes hands, and that's how it's awarded. And every president for the last 50, 60, 70 years has had their own coin minted. And then, you definitely have coins that are sold. So like in support, so you could buy a coin in support of the LAPD, you could buy a coin in support of different units. And then people that rank highly enough, so certainly generals have their own coins minted with their names and insignia and whatever matters to them. And folks below that often will also have that opportunity. So, the first time that I was ever introduced to these coins was building Braav. And in the early days, I dove into this environment where I kind of laugh at myself, but literally like I had seen cops on TV. I had seen veterans and active duty folks on TV. That was like my context.
Right.
And so meeting them in person and learning from them. And, I took a bunch of classes early on just to understand, what was being taught, what are some of the skill sets. Those were environments where I started to interact with them. It was just absolutely, honestly, charmed, impressed, and uplifted by the amount of commitment to mission and purpose that folks in these industries brought to their day-to-day lives. And some of them began to give me challenge coins, and I could tell by the way in which it was gifted that it was a thing of import. It wasn't like, oh, here's a keychain, here, have this.
Right.
And I researched it, and so then when I understood what the tradition was, it was like, oh my gosh, thank you. That's such a big honor. There was a period of time where I was just sort of a challenge coin, enthusiast and I suppose collector to the extent that I received some of them. And then at one point, I just couldn't stop thinking about the value of the tradition, the amazing stories that I had heard, and the way that the tradition was actually fragile. And I say fragile not because, the coins are fragile. They're thick, heavy coins. They're not fragile at all. But what I began to understand is that the most important part of the coin isn't the metal. It's not what it looks like necessarily, although that's impactful. It's the meaning behind it. It's who gave it to you? Why did they give it to you? What did you do to earn it? What happened that day? There are coins that were minted in the aftermath of incidents where people lost their lives. There were coins that are extraordinarily rare, incredibly hard to get. I talked to one Navy SEAL who if I remember correctly, had been on SEAL Team 6 and said, my SEAL Team 6 coin is effectively the equivalent of a PhD. Like it was 8 years of my life to do the work to enable me to be on this team. So, all those stories were being kept as part of an oral tradition, like the oldest tradition in the world, right? Like what we did before written language when we sat around a fire. And there's something lovely about that, but there's also something very, very fleeting and ephemeral. And I realized that when we talk to veterans who would say things like, gosh, when I am gone, my grandkids will have no clue what these things are. Like they could get thrown out, they could get lost. And that made me very sad. And it also, I think I say this as an immigrant, right, to this country. The coins to me really felt like the best of America in a lot of ways. Like they were moments where people were giving and caring and self-sacrificing in the interest of a larger vision. And I wanted to find an opportunity to highlight that. And so we explored, I had the benefit, this to your point of being kind of an outsider in a space. I had the benefit of obviously having the tech background. I came out of venture, so I was well aware of the options that blockchain offered in terms of a store of information. And, fast forward some thinking and testing, but we are today the first ever, and as of today only, network that allows veterans and first responders to do two things. One is upload their existing coins into a beautiful visual space. We think of it as like the LinkedIn of challenge coins, where they get their own page and the coins turn in space and you can see the front and back and you could store the information and you could explore someone else's coins to see what do you have, and maybe connect with people that have the same coins that you do, but you didn't know them. And then the second piece is for new issuers, you actually get to create a digital coin at the same time that you create a physical coin. Or, we've actually had a couple of situations where people wanted to do a standalone digital coin, which is great and makes sense for some use cases. But the digital coins that we allow issuers to create live on the blockchain. They have perfect provenance. They can track exactly who they give it to. They can maintain a relationship with the recipients of their coins. And they can add more data to their coins than what they could ever do, in a physical object. So they're able to add video, add photo, add story, add narrative. And because of the way we've structured the envelope for the blockchain coins, we describe it as a living coin. So they could keep pushing things to that coin. So Jeff, you could mint a coin with us, and then in a month you could run and win a marathon. And then you could push that image of you running across the finish line of the marathon to your coin holders with a tagline of like, you could accomplish whatever you set your mind to, whatever from a coaching perspective. Or maybe you have a new partner or a new organization that you're now working with, or a new opportunity for the people that were guests on your podcast. We found the early users of this platform from the issuer perspective love that element. We've been so fortunate to be working with amazing organizations like Freedom 250, the military influencers conference. We have a war game company that has used our platform for several issuances of their coin. We're kicking off some amazing conversations with wreaths across America and anticipate and look forward to getting their coins on our platform. So yeah, it's been a wild ride and a really fun journey to get to this place.
Did I read it right? I mean, is it a free platform for the users, and what was the business decision behind that?
So for users, it's 100% free. So it's always free for a veteran or first responder to go and upload their coins. And our overwhelming goal there is really about community creation. It's a very small way that we say thank you to our veterans and first responders. And the monetization of the platform is on the issuer side. So when we have private companies or organizations come to us to issue coins, there's a charge for that. And the other thing that we are really, I think we may be launching it this week. I need to check with our developer, but we're setting up a storefront to allow people to sell digital coins. Initially just digital, but we're layering on the physical twin aspect, either as fundraisers or certainly, it's fine to do so for profit. There are some for-profit companies that will sell coins as well. So that's another source of monetization.
And I think you told me yesterday there's 30 million challenge coin holders in the U.S., which, kind of...
Yeah, in the U.S. alone. And that's across, military, police, first responder, CIA, FBI, Air Force, private companies. Some private companies will issue challenge coins. And we actually see the space growing, if anything, not shrinking.
Yeah, I mean, just the honor, what is accomplishments or serving in a certain battalion or troop is amazing, and like you said, membership. I got my first coin. You gave me access to the platform, and I got a Braav
coin.
I got a Braav coin, my first one. So that was exciting. That was this morning, and just to show what a shallow interviewer I am. But I do like drinking games. There's actually a long-standing drinking game associated. So why didn't you describe that, Anna?
So I have never played this game. So I'm this is hearsay only. And what I think is fun is that different people have given me slightly different variants of this, but effectively it's some version of like we're at a bar. And if we're in the same unit, I can be like, hey, I have my unit coin. Do you have yours? And if you don't have yours on you, then you're paying. But however, the other version of it is, I could be like, hey, here's my best coin. What's your like highest coin? And I think that that's not actually what I would say. So if there's a first responder or a veteran cringing right now, I apologize. I know you would say something much cooler. But effectively the person with like the best coin would win, and that person would not pay for drinks. And I actually really enjoy playing the game with people of like, well, what coin outranks which one? So, I think everyone kind of agrees like the presidential coins generally are kind of like the trump card, like they're the highest one. So if you have like, a President Obama coin or President Bush coin or President Trump, whatever it is, that's a very highly ranked coin. But then I've asked, fun questions like, well, what's better? Is it like a Navy SEAL coin or is it a Delta Force coin? And then I just sort of listen to what people
That's
say.
an argument I could take all day and all night and into the next one probably.
And I think if I'm feeling kind of sassy, I'll ask those sorts of questions. People will humor me and we'll get into it of like what coin trumps what.
Yeah, and I heard the presidential coins didn't come till like the 90s, maybe with Clinton, possibly. I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting. That's actually a great thing for me to know. I had thought that I had heard about older ones than that, but maybe not.
Anna, how could people get a hold of you? Who are the types of people you're trying to help? What would you like to share?
I would love to talk to any veteran or first responder who's into challenge coins. It is just a delight for me to hear your stories, to get you onboarded on the platform. And every time I talk to someone, I learn something new. So I'm very reachable at anna@braav.co, ANNA@BRAAV.co, and absolutely respond to emails. So please reach out. And then if you're an organization that is doing challenge coins, has done them in the past, or maybe you've never done it, but you've been thinking about it, please reach out. We do have a limited number of slots for complimentary digital coins that we're giving out. So let me know if you were an organization that would like that, or if you know of an organization. We especially love working with veteran-owned businesses or with nonprofits supporting veterans. But even if you're not either of those, and just think challenge coins are cool, reach out, and I'd love to chat.
And I love ending the podcasts each time, getting great advice with great leaders like yourself, and helping two groups of people. The first group is that the people that are just graduating college or maybe even high school, but they're entering their professional career. What advice would you give them as they begin that professional journey, and advice to get that first job?
Okay, I think there's kind of general advice that probably has been true for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And then there's like now specific advice. And the now specific advice is everyone should be using and learning AI at a very high level. We use a lot of it in our business. We're actually about to partner with HyperAgent, which I love, and we're actually one of their founding 500 companies. And we are about to partner with them to launch a program helping veteran-owned businesses use more AI and to use it more productively. So I think if you're graduating and you're not building stuff, you know, that's really setting you behind. And then the other piece, and I think this actually kind of dovetails with the AI thing, is the people that I think are happiest and also succeed are the ones that are always learning. So, you know, don't think that you're going to learn this one thing and be done with it. Like, be pushing the envelope. What's next? What other skill set can I add? And even just beyond skill sets, like what else is in the world? Maintaining a curiosity. And, you know, the other piece is I have had a hard time working for people in my career. I love driving my own ship, but I will say, as I've gotten older, I've kind of understood that so much of diving in and getting a job or working for someone isn't so much getting them to look at you and recognize you, and it's more about like, how can you help them? And I think if someone had told me that when I was 20 or 22, it would have helped me in a lot of situations, because I took a lot of things personally where I really should have been thinking like, well, I just needed to be of more use to the organization that I was in.
Yeah, no, I love that advice. And if you can remember the first time that you were responsible for a team of people on the org chart, so you became a first-time manager, what advice would you give those type of first-time managers as they begin their leadership journey?
It's funny. My experience was when I was so young. So I think I definitely learned a lot of things by figuring out what not to do. Which sometimes works for you. I think it's really important to kind of come in with humility, to, especially if you're managing someone whose job you have not done or cannot do, to really understand what it is that they're responsible for before you go in and sort of elbow your way in and start to make change. But otherwise, I think a lot of what managers do is just empower people to be their best. The best managers and leaders that I have met in my career are fundamentally just really inspiring people, where you have a conversation with them and you leave that conversation feeling like, I can do it, I can be better, and I'm excited to be better. And it's a tall order, but if you work on that and can crack the code on that, you will be the kind of manager that everyone wants.
Yeah, great advice. Anna, thanks so much for coming on the Corporate Couch. I loved our conversation, and I'm so glad the Beegs introduced us. So thanks for coming on.
He's incredible. He's the kind of leader that I
yes.
think will follow into, anywhere. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Well, with Anna, any story that starts with a mountain lion in your yard in California, it
That's a
starts
good
with
one.
and making the national news because of it. Just such an interesting career, immigrating from the Ukraine when it was part of the Soviet Union, coming to the U.S. Her parents were like astonished that you can have bake sales and make money, and she was
Hmm.
enthralled with it. She was like, that was her first entrepreneurial experience. She gets this interesting degree at Harvard, which basically is both a undergraduate and a master's in like three completely different majors, really. I love the story. When she was in high school, she basically wanted to get AP credit for French literature, met with somebody that was teaching it at another high school or in a couple cities away, got the curriculum, sold her high school, and basically got an AP class for French literature because she wanted the credit for it. Oh my God.
So she was entrepreneur from the very beginning, even in her education.
Yeah, I mean, she goes, "Oh, I really wish Shark Tank was around when I was
Yeah.
growing up." Um, and then starting a company, because watching somebody get the shit kicked out of them outside of a Starbucks, and then starting a security company based on that experience, because she thought, well, businesses need this. I just thought, oh my God, it was so good. I could have
Wild
talked to her
story.
forever. And then I didn't know anything about challenge coins, but in researching for the episode and the conversation, it's just a phenomenal. So talk about bringing AI and blockchain into the fray of something that means so much to military personnel and veterans. It's now morphed into first responders have challenge coins, yeah, even sports teams, and Clinton started handing them out in his presidential tenure, and it has continued ever since. So I mean, it's so and how they're preserving the memories of that digitally. There's still always going to be the physical coin, but I mean, it's such a great honor in terms of, and she's just doing it. It's free to people to digitize, I believe. And so I'm a member now of the platform, and I got
Hmm.
a Braav, her company, challenge coin. So it's so cool. What did you get out of the episode, Joe?
I thought she was a great interview and just loved listening to all of her stories. And I'm starting with the mountain lion and going straight through Shark Tank in high school and college and Starbucks and everything. It was kind of interesting because I've seen this before too. When she talked about the guy getting beat up outside Starbucks and he was on the other side of the window. So she was kind of like there but watching it. But there was a crowd that gathered around and none of them knew what to do. Oh, do we intervene here? Do we call the police? What do
Right.
we do? I've seen that before with like automobile accidents or something. If you look at it and you think, well, do I just drive past it or am I supposed to stop and help somebody or what? We're not trained or we're not wired to understand how to handle situations like that. And that then is the premise of her business as a fractional security officer is that no, people don't know what to do. People don't know how to handle things like
Right.
that. So how about I come in and help you through that so that when something like that happens in your business, you'll know how to respond to it. The whole challenge coin thing, I'd never heard of it. And of course,
Yeah.
while I was listening to the interview, first thing I did was go to Google and Wikipedia and son of a gun. They're there,
Right. Yeah.
they're
It's
there.
amazing.
And I kind of think how does a cultural item like that, escape my field of view all these years or something. I'm not sure. I haven't really digested exactly how that works out. But boy, it sure seems like a neat concept. And if I could go to Washington to get a challenge coin from a president, that'd be really cool. Of course, I
Yeah.
have to think about what I have to do to be a challenge coin, to get a challenge coin from a president, and then
Yeah.
think, well, maybe I don't want to do that.
Well, maybe
But
we.
it was a fascinating interview. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought her whole angle on things, the thing
that's worth preserving is not the coin or the company you work for or even your credentials. It's the story behind it and the courage it took to create whatever that is. So I think it's a great thing. Joe, you stumped me on the last episode with your joke about the Roman walking into the bar. Give me one more closer to my intellectual level today.
All right, maybe you can get this one pretty easy. Did you hear about the guy that lost his job at the blanket factory?
I did not.
Apparently it folded.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.